Asia Wilson's just a big bully. Look at this. Throws Lexi Hull on the ground. Everything she does is illegal. Look at this one. A moving screen and then pushes Lexi Hull. You think they ever call a foul on Asia Wilson?
When the cameras caught what happened between Aja Wilson and Lexi Hull, fans could hardly believe their eyes. Wilson, a four-time MVP and the face of the Las Vegas Aces, found herself at the center of a firestorm after a clip surfaced that showed her in what many are calling a reckless and aggressive moment. Instead of celebrating her usual dominance on the court, this time the headlines weren't about her scoring, her rebounding, or her leadership. They were about whether she crossed the line. Social media exploded with Fever fans demanding accountability and Aces supporters scrambling to defend their star. What made it even worse was that the play came at a time when emotions were already running high. Adding gasoline to the fire, this wasn't just another foul, it was the kind of moment controversy and questions a superstar's true legacy.
Some disturbing footage has come out featuring Asia Wilson and her entire Las Vegas Aces team trying to pretty much flop, assault, do whatever they can to get that win yesterday, but it was just not enough, guys. This is some disturbing content, man. Listen.
Lexi Hull was getting pushed all game. Look at that. Like elbowed, pushed, but guess who fell? That's an illegal screen.
Look, illegal screens. At this point, they playing dirty.
It all started with a single moment, captured on camera and replayed countless times across social media. Aja Wilson, the reigning star of the Las Vegas Aces and a four-time league MVP, was seen clashing with Indiana Fever guard Lexi Hull in what appeared to be a deliberate act of aggression. At first, it looked like just another heated play in a high-stakes game, but when the slow-motion angles began circulating, fans saw something much darker. Wilson's arm making forceful contact, leaving Hull stumbling back in pain. What should have been a routine defensive battle quickly became the defining controversy of the night. Within minutes of the clip being posted, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram were flooded with heated takes. Some fans immediately branded it an assault on the court, arguing that Wilson had gone too far and needed to face suspension. Others brushed it off as playoff-level physicality, saying the Fever players were simply exaggerating to gain sympathy. The division was sharp, but one thing was clear. This was not a clip that would disappear quietly. Context made the moment even more explosive. Wilson and the Aces were already under pressure after a string of disappointing performances against the resurgent Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark's arrival had electrified the Fever, and alongside Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell, the team was suddenly seen as fearless giants like no other. The Aces, on the other hand, were being criticized for looking complacent, overly reliant on their reputation instead of grinding out wins. In that environment, Wilson's heated actions against Lexi Hull didn't just look like frustration, looked like desperation. What fueled the outrage further was Hull's reaction. Known as one of the league's grittiest defenders, Hull rarely makes a scene, yet she was visibly shaken after the contact. Fans pointed out how she tried to regain her footing while Wilson stared her down, an image that spread rapidly with captions like, "Bullying won't save you," "Now," and "This is what losing looks like." It wasn't just about the hit itself, it was about the optics of a superstar unraveling in real time. The referee's response came under fire. To Fever fans, it seemed like yet another instance of officials protecting star power instead of upholding fairness. Clips circulated showing Wilson's play being brushed off while far smaller infractions by Fever players were called immediately.
What the hell? What the hell? Y'all playing super duper dirty. But this is how they was playing. This is how they was playing. Let's see.
Leans into Lexi Hull, pushes her. Look at this. Pushes Lexi Hull down. Like, I can't take this crap. I'm sick of watching it over and over. That's a moving screen, and then pushes her again. Look at that.
In what appeared to be a deliberate act of aggression. At first, it looked like just another heated play in a high-stakes game. But when the slow-motion angles began circulating, fans saw something much darker. Wilson's arm making forceful contact, leaving Hull stumbling back in pain.
So Caitlin was calling flop. I'm pretty sure everybody's seeing them flopping all over the damn place. I mean, they was hella flopping in this game. I mean, it was bad, bro.
This fed into a long brewing narrative that the league bends over backward to keep its marquee names untouchable, even at the expense of integrity. By the end of the night, the clip had become more than a highlight gone wrong. It was a symbol. For Wilson's critics, it represented arrogance and entitlement, a refusal to accept that her dominance was being challenged. For her supporters, it was simply an overblown moment in the heat of competition. But no matter which side you were on, one question lingered over the entire league. Had A'ja Wilson just crossed a line she couldn't come back from? And if the play itself was shocking, what unfolded in the hours after only magnified the chaos. As soon as the clip of A'ja Wilson and Lexi Hull went public, the internet turned into a battlefield. What might have been brushed off as just another physical play in a WNBA game exploded into a viral storm. Fans clipped, slowed, and replayed the footage over and over, dissecting every angle like it was evidence in a courtroom trial. The debate wasn't just about whether Wilson had committed a foul, it was about whether her entire legacy as a superstar was beginning to unravel. Hashtags like John suspend A'ja Wilson and Justice for Lexi began trending within hours. Fever fans argue that if the roles had been reversed, the punishment would have been immediate. They posted side-by-side comparisons of lesser-known players being penalized for lighter contact, claiming it proved the league was biased toward protecting its stars. Some even tagged WNBA officials directly, demanding Wilson be fined or suspended. If the league lets this slide, they're basically saying rules don't apply to MVPs, one fan wrote in a post that racked up thousands of likes. Meanwhile, Aces fans rushed to Wilson's defense, saying Hull exaggerated the impact to draw sympathy. Their argument was simple. The Fever are known for gritty physical basketball, and Wilson was just giving them a taste of their own medicine. Clips of Aaliyah Boston setting hard screens and Kelsey Mitchell driving through contact were pulled up as evidence that Indiana dishes it out too. The debate quickly stopped being about just one foul and became a proxy war over toughness, favoritism, and the very identity of women's basketball. On TikTok, creators went wild with breakdowns of the play. Some used slow-motion edits with dramatic music to frame Wilson as a villain, while others mocked the overreaction, suggesting the hit wouldn't have made it into a highlight reel if not for the Fever's rising popularity. The clip's virality wasn't just about basketball, it was about storytelling. Wilson wasn't just an athlete in that moment, she became a character in a drama fans couldn't stop watching. What pushed things even further was the response from former players and analysts. A handful of retired pros hinted that Wilson's behavior reflected frustration more than malice, but their comments were drowned out by louder voices saying she had crossed a professional line. ESPN segments replayed the moment on loop, each panelist weighing in on whether it was an intentional cheap shot or simply competitive fire. The more it was discussed, the more it cemented itself as a flashpoint in the season. The fallout wasn't limited to highlight shows and fan edit. Memes flooded Instagram, with one viral image showing Wilson photoshopped in boxing gloves squaring off against Hull. Another depicted her MVP trophies cracking in half with the caption, "How many awards before accountability?" It was brutal, and it kept Wilson's name trending for all the wrong reasons. By the end of the week, what should have been a debate about officiating and gameplay had snowballed into a cultural moment. A'ja Wilson, the league's golden child, was now being painted by many as its most controversial figure. And while fans were busy choosing sides online, one group's silence was deafening: the WNBA itself. And when the league stayed quiet, it only fueled speculation that things were about to get even messier.
Should have been a routine defensive battle, quickly became the defining controversy of the night. Within minutes of the clip being posted, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram were flooded with heated takes. Some fans immediately branded it an assault on the court, arguing that Wilson had gone too far and needed to face suspension. Others brushed it off as playoff-level physicality, saying the Fever players were simply exaggerating to gain sympathy. The division was sharp, but one thing was clear: this was not a clip that would disappear quietly. Context made the moment even more explosive.
I just gotta be honest. I just gotta keep it real. But at this point, like, when is something's gonna be done? You know what I'm saying? Like, when is they gonna, like, somehow fix this, or somehow, you know, like, I know they kind of fist the whistle for the most part, but I don't know, man. Something just gotta be done, bro.
As the outrage reached a fever pitch, many expected the WNBA to step in quickly. After all, when controversy threatens the reputation of the league's biggest star, officials usually move fast to either defend the player or issue a statement that restores order. But this time, there was nothing. No press release, no disciplinary update, not even a vague acknowledgement of the viral clip that had the sports world talking. That silence spoke louder than any punishment could, and fans wasted no time pointing out the hypocrisy. For Indiana Fever supporters, the lack of action confirmed their worst suspicions that the league protects its stars at all costs.
Wilson and the Aces were already under pressure after a string of disappointing performances against the resurgent Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark's arrival had electrified the Fever, and alongside Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell, the team was suddenly seen as fearless giants. The Aces, on the other hand, were being criticized for looking complacent, overly reliant on their reputation instead of grinding out wins. In that environment, Wilson's heated actions against Lexi Hull didn't just look like frustration, looked like desperation. What fueled the outrage further was Hull's reaction. Known as one of the league's grittiest defenders, Hull rarely makes a scene, yet she was visibly shaken after the contact. Fans pointed out how she tried to regain her footing.
Comment threads were filled with frustrated voices saying the WNBA would have suspended a rookie or role player in a heartbeat for the same play. The league's silence also fueled conspiracy theories. Some fans speculated that Wilson's MVP status and endorsement deals made her untouchable. Others argued that the WNBA was trying to protect its marketing narrative. With Caitlin Clark pulling massive ratings and Wilson standing as the established face of the league, analysts began questioning what message the WNBA was sending by staying quiet. On debate shows and podcasts, commentators argued that the league's credibility was on the line. By saying nothing, the league appeared weak and inconsistent.
While Wilson stared her down, an image that spread rapidly with captions like, "Bullying won't save you." Now, and this is what losing looks like. It wasn't just about the hit itself, it was about the optics of a superstar unraveling in real time. The referee's response came under fire. To Fever fans, it seemed like yet another instance of officials protecting star power instead of upholding fairness. Clips circulated showing Wilson's play being brushed off, while far smaller infractions by Fever players were called immediately.
Some just got to be done with these referees, letting them just play dirty because they play dirty.
Here we go. A'ja Wilson. Look at her trying to flop to get a call. Nobody touched you. And this is the biggest bullcrap of the game. So Kelsey Mitchell goes in for a layup. A'ja Wilson shows them their lip, so they review it. You ever see an Indiana Fever player get a review when they're called for a foul and they zoom in with a microscope and call it technical?
Meanwhile, the players themselves seemed divided. Fever teammates stood firmly behind Lexi Hull, while Aces players closed ranks around Wilson. The contrast only made the tension sharper, giving fans more ammo to argue about favoritism and double standards. The silence also allowed the moment to spiral unchecked. Without an official stance, social media dictated the story. The league's attempt to protect its star by staying out of the conversation only made things worse, because it looked like they had something to hide. What started as a questionable play had now grown into a full-blown debate about integrity, favoritism, and accountability, and if the league thought ignoring the issue would make it disappear, they couldn't have been more wrong. When the Indiana Fever and Las Vegas Aces met again after the viral clip, it wasn't just another game on the schedule, it was a showdown dripping with tension. By tip-off, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Every movement Wilson made was under a microscope. The game wasn't about basketball anymore, it was about revenge, redemption, and whether the WNBA would allow things to spiral out of control. The physicality was impossible to ignore. Indiana played with an edge, sending a message that they weren't going to be bullied. Lexi Hull herself wasted no time proving she wouldn't be intimidated, standing her ground as Wilson tried to post up, drawing a roar from the Fever crowd.
This fed into a long brewing narrative that the league bends over backward to keep its marquee names untouchable, even at the expense of integrity. By the end of the night, the clip had become more than a highlight gone wrong, it was a symbol. For Wilson's critics, it represented arrogance and entitlement, a refusal to accept that her dominance was being challenged. For her supporters, it was simply an overblown moment in the heat of competition. But no matter which side you were on, one question lingered over the entire league. Had A'ja Wilson just crossed a line she couldn't come back from? And if the play itself was shocking, what unfolded in the hours after only magnified the chaos.
They called a technical on Kelsey Mitchell and then called a foul on her on this play.
Wow.
And then look at this. This is ridiculous. Michaela Timpson gets a foul called for. And look at, ooh, Becky Hammond. Sit down just because your team's getting killed. Look at this. Another legal screen by A'ja Wilson. You cannot stick your leg out on when you're setting screens. A'ja Wilson. Look at that foul they called for.
As soon as the clip of A'ja Wilson and Lexi Hull went public, the internet turned into a battlefield. What might have been brushed off as just another physical play in a WNBA game exploded into a viral storm. Fans clipped, slowed, and replayed the footage over and over.
But the Aces weren't about to roll over. Wilson, clearly aware of the eyes locked on her, played with an intensity that teetered between dominance and frustration. She attacked the rim relentlessly, shouting after every made basket as if daring the referees to call something against her. The referees, already under scrutiny, seemed rattled. Then came the breaking point. Midway through the second half, Wilson collided with Hull once again while fighting for a rebound. Hull went crashing to the floor, and the arena erupted in chaos. After the referees huddled for minutes, they ruled it a common foul, not a flagrant. The reaction was explosive. Fever supporters flooded social media with accusations of corruption, while Aces fans celebrated it as proof Wilson was being unfairly targeted. The call reignited the entire debate about favoritism, fairness, and how much power a superstar really holds. By the final buzzer, the Fever had secured another statement win, but the score felt secondary to the drama. The rematch had confirmed what many already suspected. This rivalry was no longer about competition alone. It was personal, emotional, and impossible to look away from. And with the drama hitting new heights, fans began asking the question the league dreaded most. In the days following the rematch, the conversation shifted from the game itself to something much bigger: A'ja Wilson's legacy. For years, Wilson had been celebrated as the face of the WNBA, but now, instead of praise, her name was trending for all the wrong reasons. Fans were questioning whether Wilson had lost control. Critics pounced on her performance, pointing to moments of visible frustration. Social media users compiled montages of her missed layups, exaggerated reactions to fouls, and heated exchanges with referees. Four-time MVP acting like a rookie, one viral tweet read, "The MVP glow that once shielded her from scrutiny had suddenly become a target."
And A'ja Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces lose game one on their home court to the Indiana Fever, 89-73. The Indiana Fever were in control of this game from start to finish. There was a small little patch there in the third quarter. We started saying, are the Aces gonna come back? But Kelsey Mitchell and Odyssey Sims said, no, they're not going to come back, not at all.
Meanwhile, Fever fans saw the controversy as validation. To them, Wilson's unraveling was proof that the old guard was being dethroned. They celebrated Lexi Hull's toughness, Aaliyah Boston's composure, and Caitlin Clark's leadership as the antidote to what they viewed as Wilson's arrogance. Every missed shot from Wilson became a rallying cry for Indiana's rise. Even neutral fans began to weigh in, noting how quickly narratives around stars can change. Just months earlier, Wilson had been hailed as a role model. Now she was being portrayed as the league's most polarizing figure. What made matters worse for Wilson was her own silence. While fans and analysts argued, she offered little more than vague post-game comments about playing hard, without a strong defense or public acknowledgement of the controversy. Her critics filled the void with their own stories, and in the social media era, perception often becomes reality. By the end of the week, Wilson's MVP legacy wasn't just under question, it was under siege. The once unshakable aura of dominance was cracking, and every new headline seemed to push her further into the role of villain. But if Wilson thought the noise would die down, she was mistaken, because the next battle was about the referees themselves. If A'ja Wilson's alleged hit on Lexi Hull lit the spark, it was the referees who poured gasoline on the fire. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't just about Wilson's behavior, it was about whether the referees were protecting her. Clips circulated online showing a pattern of questionable calls. Fans labeled her moves Oscar-worthy acting and accused referees of rewarding flops from the league's marquee star. The hashtag #RiggedForAja began trending, drawing thousands of posts mocking how often Wilson seemed to benefit from calls. What made it worse was the contrast. Fever players were being whistled for every small bump, while Wilson appeared to get away with far more aggressive play. One viral video stitched together a montage of her sticking her leg out on screens, elbowing for space, and jawing at referees without consequence. The caption read, "One rulebook for Aja, another for everyone else." That sentiment spread like wildfire. Even sports analysts began to break ranks, with one bluntly stating, "You can't watch this game and tell me the whistle is neutral."
You actually just referenced it twice. It is Indiana. Dropped 2 of the 3 games to them this year, but you haven't seen them since late July. What excites you about that matchup?
That they haven't seen the real Aces yet. They caught us when we were a bit in turmoil. Not only that, they whooped us one of those stretches. So, you know what? We'll buckle in, hone in where we can, and take care of business.
The controversy deepened when insiders suggested the Fever lodged quiet complaints behind the scenes. Though the league never confirmed those reports, fans believed them instantly. Referees themselves became part of the drama. Their hesitating whistles, long reviews, and intense explanations only amplified the chaos. During the infamous rematch, the crowd's chants of "refs you suck" were so loud they nearly drowned out the commentators. It wasn't just about one call anymore. It was about trust. The irony was that even with the referees appearing to give Wilson the benefit of the doubt, the Aces still lost. To Fever fans, that made the victory even sweeter, but the referee scandal left a scar. The more fans felt the league was covering for Wilson, the more they turned against her. By now, what should have been a routine stretch of the WNBA season had spiraled into something much bigger, a full-blown referendum on Aja Wilson's legacy. Every game she played after the viral clip felt less like basketball and more like a trial, with millions of fans acting as judge and jury. For a player who had long been seen as untouchable, the scrutiny was unlike anything she had faced before, and the cracks in her crown were starting to show. Statistically, Wilson was still producing at a high level, but perception is often stronger than numbers. Each missed layup or turnover was magnified online, clipped, and turned into fodder for memes.
Like we died on screens. You have to have second and third efforts. Even if you know you might be beat, you still have to try hard to get back into the play, and I don't think we tried hard in that category.
Money Mitch, put him in a ditch! Who on the Las Vegas Aces is going to try to stop Kelsey Mitchell? Because from what I just saw, they had no answer for her. Kirsten Bell, line right up, smacked. Jackie Young, step right up, torched. Chelsea Gray, torched. Jewel Lloyd, torched. Nobody could hang with Kelsey Mitchell as she goes off.
A sequence that might have once been dismissed as an off night now became evidence that she was unraveling. Fans began comparing her struggles to the rise of younger stars, saying the league was no longer hers to dominate. The nickname four-time flop started appearing in comment sections, a cruel twist on her MVP accolades. What stung the most was how quickly the tide had turned. Just months earlier, she was the gold standard of professionalism. Now she was being portrayed as entitled and unable to handle adversity. Even within the basketball community, whispers grew louder. Some former players suggested that Wilson had been shielded by officiating and team depth, and that the new wave of stars was finally exposing her flaws. The pressure clearly weighed on her. Reporters noted her clipped answers in post-game interviews, and her visible frustration on the bench. At one point, cameras caught her throwing a towel in disgust after a botched play, a moment that quickly went viral. To fans who already believed her composure was cracking, it was confirmation. The narrative shifted from Aja Wilson is unstoppable to, is this the beginning of the end? What truly cemented Aja Wilson's controversy wasn't just the foul, the officiating, or even her shaky performances. It was the way fans latched onto her meltdown and turned it into entertainment. Instead of sympathy, the tantrums became viral comedy. Instead of being seen as the league's poised leader, she became the butt of endless jokes online. And once fans flip the script like that, it's almost impossible to get it back. The internet was merciless. Memes flooded Twitter and Instagram, showing Wilson flopping exaggeratedly onto mattresses or being compared to soccer players notorious for diving. One clip of her throwing her arms up in disbelief after a no-call was looped with clown music and racked up millions of views on TikTok. Fans weren't just criticizing her, they were laughing at her. For a superstar used to being respected, that was a brutal shift. Indiana Fever supporters led the charge, celebrating every viral post as proof their underdog team had exposed not only Wilson's weaknesses, but also the Aces' arrogance. "We broke her," one fan captioned under a meme.
You know, we've got to keep the main thing, and that is us playing to a standard of basketball that we want to have as an Indiana Fever organization and franchise. You know, we've got to keep our layers. You know, the outside, the people in our building, and the people in our locker room. And the thing I'm just so proud of with this group is it doesn't matter who's on the floor, it doesn't matter who's on our roster. They give each other the freedom to be themselves. They empower one another to be themselves and to be the best version of themselves. And every time we've had a change, every time we've brought someone in, every time we've had rotational changes, they're for each other. They live the we over the me. And when you have that, it just gives you opportunities to do really special things.
How do you feel about the performance, the urgency, and the response you had when they made a couple runs late?
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, you know, our group has seen it all. You know, we wanted to come in and be the aggressor right away to make sure that we were dictating on the defensive end and we were dictating from a pace standpoint. You know, they're champions for a reason. We knew that they were going to make runs. They made a big one in the third, and we responded with a big one. I'm proud of our team. It's one game. It's a long series, so you know we got to keep the main thing. But to come in here and to be able to steal this one was big for us.
The controversy became a pop culture moment, spilling outside basketball circles. Suddenly, people who hadn't watched a game all season knew about the A'ja Wilson flop clip. This mainstream attention only deepened the humiliation. What made the situation worse for Wilson was her lack of a strong counter response. While some athletes lean into the jokes, Wilson stayed silent, focusing on generic post-game answers. That stoicism, which might have once seemed professional, now looked like avoidant. In the silence, fans filled the void with their own narratives, and none of them were flattering. The Fever's fan base embraced the role of disruptors, branding their team the boogeyman of the league. Every time Wilson showed visible frustration, Fever Twitter accounts gleefully posted reactions like "rent-free" and "she can't handle us." What started as an isolated clip had become a running storyline, fueling an entire rivalry that stretched beyond the court. By the season's midpoint, Wilson's tantrum wasn't just a moment, it was a meme. A narrative, and for many fans, a turning point. Her dominance on paper couldn't erase the perception that she had been exposed under pressure, and in the world of sports, perception often matters as much as performance. But if fans thought this was the end of the drama, they were wrong, because every viral storm eventually leaves one final question: can the superstar rise again, or is this the beginning of her downfall? A'ja Wilson's clash with Lexi Hull began as a single clip, but spiraled into one of the most controversial moments of the WNBA season. What should have been another routine highlight instead unraveled into a debate about officiating, favoritism, and whether the league's brightest star had finally cracked under pressure. From Becky Hammon's bold claims to Kelsey Mitchell's fiery performances, the Indiana Fever seized the spotlight, while Wilson's tantrums became viral entertainment.